Hello and welcome to Feedback for the week of February 1st. Made it through the first month of 2010. Yay! And they announced the Oscars. Apparently, Avatar is such a good movie that you don't need to
How
even...
did The Hangover get a nomination for Best Picture?
It did?
Because there's 10 of them.
Yeah, but really?
Wait, The Hangover?
Yeah.
Really?
Didn't get a Best Picture
That's what I
nomination.
said. Yeah, we just had the same conversation like 3 times. Yeah, really?
didn't get a nomination.
Really?
I don't think
Is
so.
Abby, I think Abby's wrong.
I'm not
I think
wrong.
I was wrong on
No,
this.
I saw it on the
I know
internet.
Up
It
and
can't be
District
wrong.
9 got it, but
District 9 was impressive, and then Up, first animated picture nominated for Best Picture since
other than
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast.
I just love that whatever it is that's so wonderful about Avatar, apparently, according to the Academy, does not include its writing or its actors. So
Hey,
no.
that's leaving a small section there. where
the
Kind
one
of telling,
key
isn't it?
difference.
Well, the Hurt Locker got an equal number of nominations, and it's directed by James Cameron's ex-wife, who is from my hometown, so I'm rooting for the Hurt Locker.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I love that movie. And that movie is one of the most
Just rooting for
phenomenal
James
things I saw
Cameron's
last year.
ex-wife.
Anyway, I need to introduce this panel. We have Matt Kyle, who is joining us to jump in on the big chunky game that is Mass Effect 2. Abby Heppy and Patrick Klepek. Thank you guys for being here. So last week, we kind of thought we were going to be talking a lot of Apple this week. And I think I just remembered by looking at this sheet that the iPad was announced. So, Klepek, go ahead and start with this story that I think has turned out much differently than we expected.
Yeah, there was a lot of fervor over Apple announcing their new device. I don't think there's been any Apple announcement that's had as much hype as the iPad has. And the iPad was essentially the simplest explanation for what people thought Apple would do, which is they just took an iPhone or an iPod Touch and they made it bigger. And it's coming out sometime in March. You know, the base is a Wi-Fi only version for $499. It goes all the way up to $829, depending on what size you want and if you want 3G incorporated into it. And right now, yeah, I mean, we've run several stories on G4TV.com talking to iPhone developers about, are you excited about this? And it seems to be so far a tepid response from users, a tepid response from developers, and probably a tepid response from us.
I mean, do you think that Apple just kind of misdiagnosed what people were
No.
expecting
No, I think the iPad is going to be absolutely gigantic.
in terms of
just-
sales?
Yes, it's
And
just not going to be
with,
for us.
I'm with
Yeah.
I'm with Matt too, and I think the fact that we all already own iPhones or like that sort of technology is so ubiquitous with stuff
Yeah.
that we do. I think when people dismiss the iPod as just a big iPod Touch, that's the point. You know what I
Right,
mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And
We all have devices that do all this stuff already.
Yeah.
Like the people that would be moving from their iPod Touch to an iPad as their first small computer don't have that. So that's who that's for. I mean, it's trying to make the future accessible to these people,
Yeah.
to our moms.
But I guess the one thing that and I do agree. I think that's what the point of it is. Yet we were expecting that this might actually have an impact on gaming. And when you look
Were
at
we?
It might, yeah.
well, we thought it might. But I think Apple wanted to make us think that when they bring on EA showing Need for Speed Shift, it was I found that to be very strange.
Yeah, but they've only had the iPad for like 4 weeks or something. Like the developers. I mean, they haven't had much time to get anything up and running. I think you've got a platform there that you could do some really interesting stuff with if they can break out of the iPhone issue of like we've either got like hamstrung versions of bigger games or Facebook games with a touch interface. But imagine you've got that big iPad thing, and they make, say, a Star Trek game where you're actually doing engineering bridge on it, and that could be really cool. Just a weird little simulation of what it would be like to have, because this pad is clearly based on the whole Star Trek cool carrying around your little life
Yeah.
and your little digital thing. Just take advantage of that. They need to take the format and run with it. The way some Wii developers.
That's the thing. It's announced, and now developers need to convince us. You know, Apple sort of here's what it is, and I think the problem that people had was that they expected at the end of it, this is why I need to whip up my credit card, and there wasn't that clear. This is what it's going to solve in my life right now. This is what I need it
Yeah,
for.
well-
and I think that's why we have 60 days that developers are going to come out and show us that. But I did thought I'm with you. The game demos they did show. I thought of a million different games that could have been much better than Need for Speed Shift, where I just change a gear. I was like, why didn't they show The Sims? The Sims
Yeah.
would be a
that
really
makes absolutely
fascinating
and
demo.
EA,
on that.
I think, would make an obscene amount of money on getting The Sims on the
Oh,
iPad.
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, they showed the wrong kind of games. And also, I mean, I have I love Apple products, and I have an iPhone and you know, the MacBook, but the reason that I play games on my iPhone is because I always have it with me every second of the day. You know, so if I step out and I'm on the bus, or you know, and I'm waiting for something, I'll do my crossword puzzle or something. And so I wouldn't be carrying around like the iPad and something that big with me.
Well, that's
so,
exactly it. Is
yeah.
the trick between the iPhone and iPad games is an iPhone can just be something amusing that you whip out when you're bored. An iPad has to make me want to pick it up.
Yeah. And
It's
the
something
fact
you would
that it
play at
doesn't-
home.
Yes.
It doesn't have a camera, which kind of negates using Skype or anything like that on it. And I will probably do the same thing that I do every time Apple, you know, releases a product, which I will wait another year or two and then see what they add, how they make the battery life longer, because 10 hours.
Yeah, I don't believe that number for
Yeah,
a second.
right.
Not with games. I refuse to believe it's
It
going
might,
to go
I
to
might
10
be able to
hours.
stay on for 10
Yeah,
hours.
if I
I'm
use
not
my
disputing.
iPhone for anything other than just, you know, receiving that crashes immediately,
Yeah.
I'm sick of having a phone that I have to charge over the course of my normal workday.
10 hours,
You
and
know?
if you turn it on, leave it on the desk, and don't come
And don't
5
ever
feet
touch
Well,
it.
I,
Yeah.
I love how they use the word it can achieve 10 hours, because if
you
that
work
didn't
with
sound
it-
like erectile dysfunction talk, I mean, it just really, I was ready for Bob Dole to show up.
I mean, there
If
will
your
always
iPad is on for more than 24 hours, consult the doctor.
and there will always be people who will go and pick this stuff up on release date, but I will be waiting, and I will see when they add the camera in and when they make it. I mean, I'm annoyed that I already pay a certain fee to AT&T a month for 3G, and
know.
I have to turn my phone off of 3G just to keep its battery life on that long.
I
Like,
probably
God.
have had more buyer's remorse with my iPhone than anything else because of all the ancillary
Well, you haven't even
costs.
touched
I
yours
wasn't,
in, like,
yeah,
2
I know.
months, have
It's
you?
been ages. Our user DJ8002 says, against my better judgment, I may actually pick one up.
No,
I
wait.
I do think this is going to be a very general attitude of at least the people who make up our viewers and our readers. This kind of like, it's a new Apple product. I mean, there's something so Pavlovian about the way that we deal. I mean, with I mean, Steve Jobs is like the Dane Cook of technology. It's just, it's not funny. We just know when we're supposed to laugh, and we all do. Not me. Dane Cook isn't funny. It's
True.
I mean, I guess the one game that seems so obvious to me, why didn't they show like an old LucasArts adventure game?
The point and
Because
click, yeah.
those graphics would not work on the iPhone because you wouldn't have the level of resolution you need to be able to see the detail, and it's absolutely perfect on a screen that size, and obviously with the touchpad.
Well, not even necessarily going back to LucasArts stuff, but it's, there's a large point and click adventure like market. Not a
Well, look
large
at the
market, but they're
CSI
out there.
games.
People still make
They're
those.
still those
Well, not even
basic point and
I mean, you've
click.
still
I mean-
got those Beast of Cal things. There's a third Siberia game coming out. I mean, these things exist and they still sell to a certain audience. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, here's your perfect platform to deliver these things to an audience that might not ever pick this up on PC.
And the thing with the iPad that I'm really excited about from a games perspective is that so many iPhone games I play, my biggest complaint and concern is that I have to constantly sort of tilt the phone to see what my fingers are doing because the screen,
Is small.
depending
Yeah.
on the size of your fingers, the screen is small, and the iPad eliminates that problem in that you don't have to constantly worry about where your fingers on the screen and how much real estate you're taking up. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what developers do with that because I think that opens up a lot more possibilities when you don't have to worry about your hand covering up the screen.
Now, in terms of, obviously, a lot of people have been doing very well financially by making games for the iPhone. I guess the one thing that I've wondered is that has it become so big that we're almost looking at what happened in the Atari 2600 era, where there just becomes this glut and it all bottoms out. I mean, do you think that this momentum is going to be able to withstand itself? Because I guess most people really don't think of the iPad as a gaming platform, and a lot of these are impulse buys.
No, I think a lot of people think of it as like a Kindle killer. I mean, and frankly, I like having books, and I spend all day looking at a screen. So I can't say my impetus is to go home and then, after I'm done playing video games or watching TV, like look at another one. I'd kind of rather just get a book and go to
if
bed.
I can, if they get something up and running decent for DC or Marvel, where you can like get
Yes,
the
comic
week's
books.
comics, because I don't have time or the room to buy individual issues of comics anymore. But if I could get like the week's comics on,
Sync it like a podcast.
You can do it on the PSP
Be
at this
awesome.
point, can't you?
Yeah, but I don't like to. I don't know where my
Well,
PSP
that's what I'm
is.
saying. Well, yeah. No, but that's what
That
I'm
is the
saying.
best
Then
response.
you could. It seems like the work is already in place to actually
Yeah.
bring something like that to iPad.
And the best thing about iPad is
I found mine
for
this
that
morning.
is like you wouldn't have to scroll
Congratulations.
really. I mean,
It was
you
under
have
my
about a
entertainment
page
center.
size to deal with.
Well, it'd be neat if you also had an option where you can kind of focus in on one frame. If there's something quite remarkable in that, and you can,
Sure.
like with all those absolutes, they're kind of a the haul out and put it on my lap and read.
And-
But it's gorgeous to be able to see some of those.
Really? It's too much trouble to take it.
Feeble man can't lift
I
the
mean,
comic
sitting
book.
there, I'm sitting there like this, or I'm leaning over it. Yes, the old man isn't. Yes, whatever. What I'm saying is I do like seeing that, with the art so clear.
Faulkner's one thing, but when you're bringing out Spider-Man,
Oh man,
heavy material.
so hard to walk over to Blair Herter's desk and pick up a comic book.
It's the little things.
So Satoru Iwata from Nintendo, I guess people thought that this might actually be a real competitor with Nintendo's Wii, which I think none of us would have really thought was that possible. But he seemed a little bit nonplussed.
Yeah, he told a Japanese newspaper that he didn't find anything surprising about the iPad and just called it sort of a big iPod Touch. But I think actually our user comment made me laugh quite a bit, saying user EKG said, "I guess it would look less silly than waving your arms around like a madman and throwing a controller into an inexpensive television, something Wii owners have to live with every day." sort of playing on the response being everyone said the same thing, the same sort of cynical attitude about your products. It seems sort of counterintuitive to be so dismissive of people doing other things. Although they're a corporation, so what do you expect them to say?
And let's remember that the iPod has sold how many times more than even the Wii? I mean, it's a big deal. 200 million something iPods out there.
But it just doesn't sound like a Wada-san.
No.
He's such a nice, boyish man.
But you're never going to.
Yeah, but no new surprises.
Never going to get
scathing criticism
No,
either.
but by Iwata standards, I mean, he would just strike me as someone who would just say "mum" on the whole affair. I was a little bit surprised that he actually would decide to go out for comment. Since we are talking about Iwata, Nintendo made some announcements that not revolutionary, but were somewhat surprising.
Announces more just like reiterating things we've already heard, but. Metroid Other M is coming. They've confirmed that it's again this year, and it's coming to Japan in the summer, which would assume, naturally that would probably mean it's coming here in the fall. And they said that their E3 plans are to showcase Mario Galaxy 2, Zelda, and the first games for the Vitality Sensor. And I guess sort of extrapolating from that would be sort of our suspicion that Zelda isn't probably coming this year. That we thought we might get Mario Galaxy 2 this spring. If they're showing it E3, we're not getting it
we're not getting it this spring.
And it looks like maybe based on the sales of New Super Mario Brothers, they've decided to shift the Mario game to the fall, Metroid to maybe late summer, early fall, and then we'll get Zelda next spring.
Isn't August the traditional Metroid release?
That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe
maybe maybe it'll come like June in Japan. Mm-hmm. Well, even then, I mean, they might want to keep a little bit of surprises for E3. But
I might import that one. That's got my curiosity
Same.
at max.
I was thinking the same thing.
I have never looked at a game and just gone, I don't know. I want to know.
And when was the last time you did that with a Nintendo game? Because Nintendo games, even Zeldas, are always just like, I don't even need to look at the previews for that because I know I'm going to buy it. I know I'm going to play it. It's Zelda. And then with this, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what you're going to throw at me. I haven't been this interested. I don't think I've been this interested with a big X factor on a Nintendo game since probably Pikmin.
Yeah. Which I still don't know what to make of that game.
They should make a Pikmin
that
3.
Eternal Darkness. And Eternal Darkness was the other one.
We kept thinking they were hinting at that.
No, they
the
announced
Wiimote
they announced
designed to do
Pikmin
that.
3, but Miyamoto has said, we've only got like 3 people working on it.
Grow more.
But it's also it's a Pikmin game. I mean, what are they trying to do that's so revolutionary with this version of Pikmin?
I never knew why there wasn't a DS version either. Would have made a lot of sense.
What if Pikmin 3 is going to use the Vitality Sensor? What if you can use the Vitality Sensor to sense how well your Pikmin are doing?
What would like a sad or scared feeling with this thing on your finger?
I'm gonna poke you.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the Vitality Sensor in a moment. One thing I think is true is that, yes, getting Metroid Other M out from the year's end, I think will only help Metroid Other M. I think that was...
In part because it seems to be kind of directly competing with your standard action game, blockbuster thing. Keep it away from the other ones so people are willing to pay attention to it.
And of course, we expect that Sony, Microsoft will be getting a lot of attention with their motion control. That this Metroid is well loved, but it does not have anywhere near the level of awareness as their other two properties of Zelda and Mario.
And you're bringing in the awareness of Team Ninja too. So
Other M has something to prove too, whereas Mario Galaxy 2 is again like at this point like a Zelda. It's a given. Like we know that game's going to be fantastic. It's just a matter of how fantastic is it.
Yeah, and it's really and that's. I'm buying it.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
awesome is your game? So awesome.
Yeah, that, Mario Galaxy 2 epitomizes that sort of attitude.
Our user Sylvania has a comment on the vitality sensor. I like this comment. The only good use for the vitality sensor that I can think of besides for fitness would be in the horror genre. Maybe something like a horror game with monsters that appear from your own heart beating too fast. I thought that was a great idea, but it made me think of like, is the vitality sensor like going to turn games into these strange William Castle films, like when he did the Tingler and he put the stuff under everybody's seat?
Well, I wonder, like, there's rumors that what's that new that Monolith is working on, that one of those RPGs, not Xenoblade, but the Last Tale or the Last Story.
The last story.
Last
yeah.
Story. There's rumors that is going to use no credence to this whatsoever. It's the internet, but they're saying that maybe it's rumored to work with a vitality sensor and be kind of like the more relaxed you can be, the more Zen state you get, the better your attacks are. Like the more damage you do.
So if
I would be way better at
if you
that
can
one,
keep your
'cause I
heart rate
don't-
low,
Yeah.
that you can.
And I have never had a problem keeping my heart rate low during a JRPG. So, and these are the people that made Xenogears. I fell asleep playing Xenogears, so I think I'm going to do very well at this if this is true.
I guess what was neat about this comment is I never thought of the vitality sensor sort of that. I thought it was going to sort of affect you, like the game will give you some sort of input through the sensor. But the idea that you would
I think it's
actually
gonna be the other way
affect
around.
the game,
an input.
there's some very clever ideas. It just once again, are you overcomplicating matters? You know, is it necessarily
Something else you have. Does it also plug into the Wiimote? Do I have like an octopus dangling out of it? Where does it go?
Yeah, where
Can
does
I
it
give
go?
people lie detector tests through
It
it?
has to be through the Wiimote.
That would be.
Yeah.
Hold on.
That would
would be a
be
fantastic.
awesome.
There's your
thing to
Phoenix
download
Wright
Not
game.
WiiWare.
scientifically.
That would be
There's
really
your Phoenix
cool.
Wright game.
I hope someone from
great
Nintendo
idea.
and other developers listening to this. So, there's some pretty good ideas here.
Yeah, well, I think you just have to find something that takes that little gimmick and makes it like, oh, that's really cool, and I couldn't get it anywhere else. The same way that they've got that Ghost game that keeps floating around in the ether,
yeah,
pun
the
intended, for the
DSi
DSi,
one, yeah.
where like you've got the camera that faces you and the camera that faces out, and you have to kind of scan around and see the ghost. But then sometimes you have a little picture of yourself, and sometimes you'll see a ghost behind you on the screen, like added
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
picture of you, and like that's an awesome way to use that camera.
Yeah, and every time I think of that, I think of Fatal Frame, and then I'm like, wow, you know,
You
could-
actually
there's-
mentioned mentioned the iPad camera. Like,
Yeah.
the iPad should have a camera on the other side so I can see through it
That'd be cool.
and scan stuff.
That would be neat.
So like,
then it goes into your whole,
every
like, Star
moment
Trek,
could be
I
like
mean-
that crazy, scary moment from The Descent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I need more anxiety with my technology, please. Thank you so much. Our third story, Platinum Games. They've already had. Well, no, the two games have come out. One is imminent. The third
DS
one,
game, yes.
the DS game. And I completely forgot that there was a fourth that was out there, but it is from Shinji Mikami. who
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
you know, the creator of Resident
Shinji
Evil.
Mikami, the creator of Resident Evil, Devil May Cry. This is the first we've kind of heard of what he's been doing for a long time, and he's announced a game called Vanquish, which looks vaguely like a white-themed Halo in space.
But no gameplay in the trailer that we saw.
Yes.
So.
Haven't there also been comparisons to Piano 3?
That was
Yeah.
that was something someone brought up pretty quickly. It seems like it could be sort of a spiritual successor to that sort of. I didn't play it, but my assumption was underrated GameCube shooter. But I don't know how many people played it.
I don't even know.
That was part of
remember
the
what year
Capcom
that came
5
out.
way
That
back
was 04, 03?
when.
Yeah,
that
was
sounds about
that
right.
around
We
the
might have
era of
still
like
been in San
Auto
Francisco.
Modalista and all those
Yes.
really like odd little games that I've completely forgotten about?
And that Kid Icarus sort of looking game they announced for a long
Yeah,
time.
the one that got canceled.
Yeah,
Phoenix something.
can't remember.
Yeah, those were interesting days,
Oh,
Capcom.
The
Thank you
heady
so-
days of GameCube exclusives.
Now, Platinum Games. I mean, do you have a sense, Patrick, with this game coming out? I mean, are they? Do you think they're going to be staying with Sega? Do you think it's been a good relationship that they should be staying with Sega?
I mean, it seems, well, from Platinum Games' perspective, yeah, the Sega partnership is fantastic. They pretty much bankroll whatever the hell they want to do. If that's paid off for Sega, I think largely rests on what we see from the sales performance of Bayonetta.
Yeah.
Mad World did okay, got really good critical reception, and that's really been good for Sega, given that Sega hasn't done so well critically
Yeah.
for a good long time. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of the reason they partnered with Platinum was like they know that gave them credibility when you get people like Shinji Mikami.
They
and
are called
Kamiya on
Platinum
board.
Games.
Yeah.
It's
Like
kind of like having Stanley Kubrick at Warner Brothers. Yeah, we may not make all that much money, but we look good.
Yeah, when you save Clover Studios, essentially, like
Yeah.
that looks good to gamers. But
Yeah.
so far that hasn't really panned out in towards any sort of
we
monetary.
will see NPD
gain.
numbers later this month that might answer the Bayonetta
I
question.
expect
And I'm more
Bayonetta to do
excited to
well,
see
yeah.
Bayonetta's NPD than I was for Mad World because even no matter how great your game is
Yeah.
on the Wii,
It's just not
third-party
going to happen.
games just don't
Well,
sell.
and you know, what is the name of the DS game from Platinum?
Infinite Space.
Infinite
I think.
Infinite Space?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how well that might do here, but I could see that be actually doing quite well in Japan, just with the way that the DS is treated, and you know, can't say I'm too excited for it
Yeah,
myself.
we can't remember the name, but
It's now looking at the type of game that this does look more like sort of a Western genre that they're treading into, and we have been seeing. I'm blanking on the name of this. What's the game from Namco that looks like a Gears game?
Quantum Theory.
Theory.
Quantum
Tecmo.
Theory. Oh,
Tecmo,
that's right. It's Tecmo,
yeah.
not Namco. It is interesting that we're seeing this kind of movement of trying to sort of ape things that become very fashionable from Western developers in Japanese games. Obviously, we don't know how that Tecmo game is going to turn out, although the amount of quiet
Bad,
that has
terrible.
surrounded it.
It's
seems
supposed to come out in like a
awful.
month, and they haven't even shown it. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
I played it at TGS. You don't want to play it.
Well, with that in mind, I do not think that Mikami would ever put out something that
But
would
I
be really
think
bad.
Black-
But it's interesting seeing them move into territory that is very far outside of a typical Japanese developer's comfort zone.
I think that's smart because
Yep.
I think what we've largely seen from a lot of Japanese developers, and Capcom's been on the forefront of this, is sort of trying to find a way to, Japanese attention to detail, Japanese styles of games, but trying to break out, innovate a little more, do something that appeals to a slightly more Western audience. But some companies go way too far one way, and then some companies don't go far enough. And I think we've seen Platinum Games try and strike a balance between that. and
I will buy anything they put out at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
I love Mad World. I loved Bayonetta.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm just sold on studio name alone for the fourth.
Yeah.
Which is, you know what? It's been quite some time since where we've seen a developer that emerged where it's like, okay, I will pretty much play anything you have because there's at least going to be more creativity behind it than what we're going to get
Especially
from a lot of
Japanese.
games.
Yeah.
Sure.
Especially out of Japanese.
and
So-
somehow the Platinum games feel Sega, like old school.
Yeah.
when Sega used
Yeah,
to just
sort
put
of
out
Renegade,
stuff. Yeah, and you're like,
random stuff.
really, you did this?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
like even during the Dreamcast era, where you're
Yeah.
like,
Shenmue.
"Whoa, sure
Shenmue.
thing,
Yeah.
why not?"
Jet Set Radio, all these
Yeah.
Space Channel 5. You're
stuff that you're like,
Sure.
I don't expect that to sell.
No.
Thanks for making it.
I think you made that just for me. Thank you for Seaman. You're like,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh wow, see, man. And what was the first game for the Dreamcast that used the microphone? It was the robot game. We actually, when
robot
we
game?
did the review for extended play, we did score
Alien
through-
Front Online.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Alien
yeah,
Front
yeah.
Alien Front
Online.
Online, the first review I ever cut for the
Really?
show.
See, it's all because of that 1000th episode. Like I've just been awash in kind of odd games, like Automobilista and nostalgia, things like that.
Playing some Tao Feng.
No, I will not be playing some.
All right.
Sounds like Chow Fun, which reminds me of Wang Chung. It makes me want to have a Qingdao. If you didn't watch that marathon, then you will
Wow.
know what I'm talking about. Let's talk about a game that all of us have played, and not just us, but it sounds like about 2 million other people.
Some
Is,
people
this,
like
is,
that.
is that what the sales of
Some
Mass
people
Effect 2 are?
understand.
Yeah, that's about what they're
Now, is that
saying.
international or domestic?
International.
It's
That's good.
It's international and it's sell in, which technically means that they've shipped 2 million copies of the game. But if they've shipped that many, they're gonna sell that many.
yeah,
Yeah.
judging by the local retail stores, they're selling them pretty quickly.
Yeah, word seems to be getting out further and further and further about this game. Obviously, I did the review of it, and I went in somewhat hesitant. I really liked the first Mass Effect, but that was one of those where I loved it at the moment, and as the months wore on, things started to pop out. And then when I went back to try to play it again, I was like, oh, God, the good part's right there, but I got a Mako truck between me and it.
And that is
you know,
why I had stopped playing
Yeah,
originally.
it's-
'cause I
and
got
then,
very
you know,
A lot
frustrated.
of people stopped playing.
and that there was, I didn't have as many problems with the combat as a lot of people did, but I see where people were coming from, that it didn't have.
You might have also
It-
picked
it-
the right class. If
That's
you picked
true.
the wrong class
That's
in Mass
true.
Effect 1, you a lot of times couldn't beat the game.
Well, yeah, if you picked a soldier class, something that was all based on guns, it was a challenging, opportunity, but it also wasn't all that visceral. I knew that they were aware because once we saw the game at E3, it was like, okay, these guys know what they did wrong.
That presentation was just.
That was one.
I
of
was
those-
not ready for that.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be the opening cinematic of the game.
Yep.
I knew that.
I know,
the-
right?
you remember when they did that? And
pissed when they showed that cinematic.
I knew that.
You
the
said
day
it.
of.
You called
we
it
walked
when
out
we
of
were
there. I'm
there.
like, that's
Yeah.
the first scene in the
Because
game.
we saw it. It was like our last thing that
Clearly
we did
that's what
during
they were
E3. And yeah.
Everyone was like, "Oh my god, they showed the end of the game." It's like, are you out of your mind? Have you ever seen a second installment of a trilogy? Horrible happens.
Man,
Like, that's it.
you're the guy that figures out the ending halfway through the movie.
That's why I didn't
Yep.
like Usual Suspects. Yes.
Yeah, but I figured out what was that horrible Shyamalan movie, The Happening? No, not The
Sign.
Happening.
You're gonna have
All
to
of
be
them,
more
all of
specific.
them,
No, what's,
they're all
what's the one with the
terrible.
Amish people?
The Village.
The Village,
Yeah, I figured that one out by watching the trailer. I was like, oh yeah, that's the modern world. Yeah, and if I ruined that for you, anyway.
That's okay.
I definitely
It's been
ruined the
years.
Back
Sixth
to Mass
Sense for
Effect
whoever
2.
I was sitting next to when I saw it.
I guess when I was playing the game, it's like the improvements realized, oh my god, this doesn't have a single element from the old game that was a problem. But it's also just such a good game with everything else they did. The characters are so memorable and so many
Incredibly
of the set
well
pieces.
written.
Yeah.
Just every overheard conversation, all the little moments, everything that calls back to what you did in Mass Effect 1. That's one thing that they didn't make very clear, and I think people should be aware of. I finished Mass Effect 1 3 times. I didn't have as much of a problem with the Mako
Until the third time.
The third time I was like, this sucks. Like, how did I do this?
60
2
hours of
times?
gameplay.
Like, it was just crazy. But like so many little callbacks to the side quests, and it's not just the big decision things that pop up at the beginning when you import your character. It's little characters that you talk to once and people you didn't kill that come back and react with you again. It's really well done. If Mass Effect 3 pays off Mass Effect 2 the way Mass Effect 2 paid off Mass Effect 1, we're looking at arguably the greatest trilogy,
Yeah.
planned trilogy in the history
Despite
of
with the
games.
problems of Mass Effect 1. No, I agree. I guess there's a small part of me that wishes they would go back and remake Mass Effect 1.
I
know,
like
I
Mass Effect 2. Just so, A, we can have consistency and that I can play through Mass Effect 1 one more time. Although I think I may have to. One of the things I want to talk about, how it incorporates the saves and what some of your experiences were. When I did the review of Mass Effect, I completely forgot until I was reviewing Mass Effect 2 that I was sent a hard drive by Microsoft with the game on it that I then sent back. And so I never realized I didn't have my save. And I was able to replicate most of my Commander Shepard. I was quite surprised.
You can't do all of it. Like,
No. But I
BioWare
realized
does
there's
make
quite a few
certain-
things that were missing out.
I felt a little left out not having a save from
Yeah,
one to-
I was one of those. I was one of those suckers that has had a 20 gig hard drive forever, and at some point, deleting things managed to delete my Mass Effect save. So I was all excited. I go into import and like no save present. I'm like, son of a.
I couldn't. Well, see, yeah, that's what I thought I had. So I'm forced. I think Matt, you're the one person here that can attest. Now, of course, you haven't played the game without it, so we don't know
Right.
what the difference is there.
Well, I'm playing as my Paragon Vanguard, and I'm impressed by the fact, like, especially when you go to the Citadel and the Ilium city and places like that, I kept running into people that were involved in side quests, and for a while I was wondering, because they kept reacting in an accurate way to the way I solved those side quests and dealt with those characters in the first game. And for a while I was wondering, well, are they just defaulting to the good outcome because I was classed as a Paragon at the beginning? But then I ran into Conrad Vernier, or whatever his last name is, who's the fanboy guy from the first game.
oh man,
And I hated him. And so he was the one character I dealt with harshly in the first game. And when I talked to him in Mass Effect 2, he remembered that I pointed a gun in his face and that I told him to get lost and all this stuff. But then he, of course, twisted it into his own weird thing for Mass Effect 2 to be there. But like, I was like, so maybe it's not just assuming I did everything Paragon style. Maybe it is taking the outcomes of each of these side quests. And I don't know. I don't know anyone from BioWare to ask about that. But
we are definitely going to get them in here to answer.
if
some
they are
questions.
faking it, they fooled me. That's all I can say.
I
And I just
see-
played that game 4 months ago. So
I mean, I can't see that faking it would be any less work
yeah,
than importing the save. It is really remarkable. Let's talk about the other thing that just about everybody agrees is just amazing in this game is how they changed the combat from something that really, I wouldn't even say it was turn-based because it wasn't turn-based, but you did stop down a lot. But I just found it became visceral. And that was the biggest issue you could find with the combat in the first one is you could do some cool things, but you just didn't get that sense of immediate satisfaction out of it.
And on the other end of the spectrum, you have the people who are criticizing the game because it's
Yeah.
it's a shooter now and it's not an RPG.
I want to
you
get
know.
to that later because that opens up a
yeah.
whole new can of worms.
All right, we'll get to that.
In terms of just what is your guys' experience? I'll start with you, Patrick. Like with the combat in the game.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's whereas I didn't particularly mind the combat. Like, it didn't bother me in Mass Effect 1, but it didn't do anything particularly well for me either. And in this one, I'm like excited when I can enter a room and like, all right, even if it's just a room with 15 guys, there's no sort of narrative thing going on. I'm okay because I have so many different options, and I love that like the different squad mates you can get can essentially, even if your character can't do something, you can bring in
Someone
squad
can.
mates that essentially you really have one really powerful character that you get to
Yes.
kind of. So like my guy, has more of a combat emphasis in terms of with his guns, but then when I go on a mission, I just bring 2 heavy biotics, and essentially I have augmented my class to allow myself to have all of those options available to me. And it's just, the amount of things you can do, like the additions of just the addition of ice bullets, is
Yeah, the
so
cryo
much
ammo is
fun.
cool.
It's like I'm just pumping all of my skill points into ice bullets because I love just watching them fall apart. And so that's probably the biggest thing, is that what took up so much time in Mass Effect 1 that didn't bother me but didn't do anything for me, I'm now really enjoying in 2, considering how much time you do spend in combat.
Yeah, and all of the combat missions, everything that you go on has kind of like a different take on it. I mean, at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing. You're shooting, you're using your biotics, but each one was a little bit unique and kind of fun and kind of asked something a little bit different out of you. I had a lot of fun. I love shooters, but it was different enough that I wasn't oh yeah, I've played shooters before. This is another shooter.
Yeah. Well, I'm
If
amazed
you
by
look
how
at
many
the-
things
Yeah.
they didn't reuse.
Yeah.
Like there's huge, like that VIP room in the one nightclub. You're in there for like 10 minutes, and
know.
it's huge.
I
They
know.
modeled this whole room.
I know. There's really. I keep on wondering if that falls into the DLC, just
Maybe.
because.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But I'm just
Who knows?
impressed by how little reuse of obvious reuse of assets there is,
Yeah.
especially for BioWare, because BioWare has been kind of famous for here's the same crate 14th time, but there's little things that differentiate even between separate colonies on separate planets that I'm blown away by the amount of detail and work put into it.
Now, in the combat scenarios, I mean, the one thing I did know is that if I took a step back and I only looked at it from a shooter fan's eyes, a lot of those maps where the combat took place, there was nothing rather remarkable about them. You just had the necessary crates and other stuff. But once you add those biotics in, it so changes up the nature of the combat that I couldn't give a crap where I was doing this. I was just really enjoying just, when I had Shockwave all the way up to 4 and just hitting the ground and watching people fly everywhere. I could do that all day long.
Well, I love the like in first Mass Effect I used lift constantly,
Yeah.
and that's kind of become pull in
Yeah.
2, and the fact that pull takes time to travel to them and that you can arc it like around obstacle. I basically use pull as a mortar, and I got the level 4 thing that makes it like an area of effect. So I will just lob pull over cover and lift 4 guys out, and we all just shooting gallery them for the. I mean, that is such a more interesting way
It
to
is.
do it
Yeah.
than using the turn-based ideas. I just think I think the limitations that establish so many old RPG tropes are starting to fall.
Yeah, which is, I think, what Fallout 3 really started to popularize, I think this has taken it, just even that next step, and we really are seeing just, a game doesn't have to be one genre. You can just kind of smash everything together and have something very, very
And
interesting.
I like the way that it's flexible when it comes to, I had chosen my character off the bat, and about a third of the way through, I kept thinking, God, I kind of wish I'd chosen a sniper. A lot of people seem kind of far away. I love sniping. And lo and behold, I get the option later in the game
Yeah.
to kind of add different things in, to add in different biotic powers, to add, to specialize in a different weapon. And that was awesome. Because it kind of gave me the chance to rethink that decision I had made at the very beginning. And
it
say,
allows
is
you to
that
learn
everything
enough
that I
about
wanna
the
do?
game to make
Yeah.
an informed change. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I realized is that I've been recommending to everyone, play it as jack of all trades until you get the option to reallocate your points. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
figure out what you like the best and get all the way up to 4 so you can see something really awesome
Because
happen in the game.
that's always the problem. One of the most intimidating things about the sort of the old, the Dragon Age sort of the old school style RPGs that I would see a list of 50 traits and I got 7 points. Go wild. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the really intimidating and not fun for me, because what happens is I'll think I need, I haven't read up on the distinction between 2 traits. I think I'm getting something. I get halfway through the game, realize I need to be putting my points elsewhere. And I love the fact, and I hope this becomes a staple of games where you can assign attributes, find a way to just let the player reassign later.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you can just sort of put it into everything and then realize, no, I do love sniping, and
Or in,
find a way to do
you
that.
run
Yeah,
into the
because you
thing where
don't necessarily want to then restart from the beginning and do that 20 hours that you've already put into it. And,
And you never know with these games when you're going to pick a power that you think sounds cool from the description, but then turns out later,
Exactly.
yeah, by the way, this
Yeah.
power's totally broken.
Yeah,
doesn't
but it
work.
encourages you to try everything and then pull back later. And I think that's a really overlooked design decision, because I haven't gotten to that point where I've done it, but I'm really excited I don't feel pressure when I'm like,
Yeah.
do I want to spend 2 points here? Don't worry about it. You can always just reassign it later.
Yeah.
Also, anyone who played a stealth character in Elder Scrolls 4, Yes, as someone who did and had to halfway through the game realize I can no longer go any further in this game. Yeah, I think that should be kind of a standard. I think it's only fair for the player for the amount of time that they're going to invest. A quick question from our reader, Kirasut Ranza. I like that. One only question is: should I get the first one and play that one before I get this one?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I think we feel that Mass Effect 2 is a huge improvement over the first one, just for the story, and now
It enhances
for the
it
imported
to
character.
me. Like, it enhances it to
Yeah,
me.
I wish I had that file when I was playing through. I mean, it makes a good approximation of decisions that you would have made in the first one, because I played enough of the first one to know, like, oh yeah, I remember doing that, and this is what I did, and but
And there's enough like references to the first one, and it's really cool to see like the couple of old crewmates you get back for your team is awesome. And then when you get those crewmates, go put them in your party and wander around like the Citadel and stuff, and you'll get some pretty awesome conversations referencing the first game.
yeah.
One thing I will say is that, we're recommending people go and play the first one, and I think that is smart to get the whole sort of Mass Effect experience.
Sure.
But one thing, considering how much time and effort BioWare puts into their story, I think it's a little too much to expect everyone to go back and play the
Sure,
first
and
game.
you don't have to.
Well, no, but I just don't understand why there isn't like a really proper wrap-up or a cinematic or some sort of thing that you could say previously on Mass Effect. Tell me what happened in Mass Effect.
Well, even for, I think for all of us,
See,
it wasn't that fresh in our
I don't
minds.
have 12 hours to go and plow through it. I'd like to go back and do that so that, by 3, I could have a character that I've done all the decisions. And, I think that'd be very cool. But I just think for as much effort as they put into it, make a cinematic that gets me caught up.
But
Tell
see,
me
that's the
about
thing is they do. I mean, like that was actually the nice thing about it was playing through and playing as much as I'd played of the first one. Like, I started recognizing things, and then they do within the first 10 or 12 hours of Mass Effect 2, they tell you what happened, and they make it pretty clear through all the characters you talk to exactly what happened in Mass Effect 1.
Yeah,
I mean,
think you miss
if you
out on
haven't
some...
played the first one, they do a pretty good job of letting you know what state the galaxy is in.
And it's been, it's a long, Mass Effect 1's a long game, but you've had 2 years to finish it. And it's good. And I think...
They've also just had 2 years to make a small catch-up video. Just show some of the cinematics. I just think that's for what, how much investment you put into it and how many more people are going to be playing the second one that didn't play the first one. I think that's just a really small thing that not enough games do.
But I'm interested I'd be interested to find out what the technical challenges or limitations would be of designing that, in the sense that you would have to do it real time. You would have to use your character.
Come on, all those textures popping in. It would be awesome.
Yeah. You would have to use the import data in a way that you didn't even... I'm wondering if there was a technological limitation to that.
Yeah, or they just, or it could have just been they took the generic character they put on the box art anyway, and that could just be the generic playthrough.
I think the
that's
codex
interesting.
explains enough of it.
Yeah.
And I love how it reads to me. There are times where
Yeah.
I was just tired. I'm like, I'm going to listen to my codex. It's kind of like a book on tape of pretend things. I'm going to go ahead and read from our user Backbeat, because I think this gets to what you were alluding to earlier, Abby. This is what we all have been waiting for, and a great sign of what Cliffy B said not too long ago. I think what Mass Effect 2 is going to start a trend where eventually the lines will be blurred. We will still have our Gears of War and Uncharted, where the story is just straightforward, but maybe the way you tackle it will be up to the players more. I at least hope that the game will introduce other gamers to try out more RPGs and BioWare games instead of just shooters. This is a genre melding game, and I know that there has been some dismay that has been voiced by people who are very hardcore RPG fans that this game streamlined itself. But I am definitely of the camp that I'm very happy to see something that, for the complexities of the game, is so accessible that I really am very comfortable recommending this game to people of a far more casual level of video game
And we
play.
ran into the same thing with Borderlands, where it's, here's something that's blending your shooter and your RPG elements, and at the same time, it's an incredibly different game. And, the RPG elements are really just talking to people and the decisions that you are making without that kind of micromanagement. And I understand why, hardcore RPG fans want that sort of insane, but man, I played D&D for 10 years, and I don't need that anymore.
No,
BioWare's doing
and
both.
I don't even think
that's-
it was ever that complicated in D&D.
That's why Dragon Age exists.
Yeah, if you want that, it's right
so-
there.
And I've
it's
always
there,
thought
by
that
Dragon Age,
I've always thought that back when I was younger, I would play Wasteland over and over and over and over, and to me, everything that happened in my head when I was playing that was very close to Fallout 3, or Mass Effect 2. to me, the trappings of RPGs are basically we didn't have the technology to simulate this in real time. So
Yes.
we had to make it turn-based, we had to make it abstract, we had to make it stat-based. Like, we don't need to do that anymore. Like those walls are going to fall between these genres that are it's going to become more of a thing where you've got a game like Gears, which is like, okay, we're emphasizing the shooting mechanics over the story, or you can have a Mass Effect 2, which has the shooting mechanics but is emphasizing the story. And I don't feel like I got shorted in terms of the BioWare experience in Mass Effect 2 at all.
And the other thing, like especially like taking basically the D&D model and putting it in video games is like when I play D&D, I'm sitting there with a piece of paper in front of me that has everything all there neatly organized, and I can see everything that's on it. When you add menus into that and then more complicated, like it's just not as fun to me.
Yeah, well, just if you're going to complain about the idea of like streamlining it into a shooter, but let's not forget what the R stands for in RPG.
Roll.
I am still playing that role of Commander Shepard, whether I am pointing my gun in real time or not.
Yeah.
Like,
And your
everybody's
role playing
Commander
has
Shepard
impact
is
unlike
distinctly
anything
theirs.
I've seen in a game.
Yes.
I'll probably be eating my words at the end of this month when we start talking about Heavy Rain. But for the moment,
Right.
I'm very comfortable saying that. I mean, and I don't. It's always been a problem, even in MMOs. An old friend who worked on the show, Greg Bemis, used to kind of complain that when he played EverQuest, how people they were still just chatting as themselves, and there was no kind of characterization in the characters they had. And I think that people are like, hey, you're a little bit uncomfortable. It's kind of weird doing that. But here, when you're in Mass Effect, by playing that character, the game is giving something back to you. I mean, it's one of the best feedback loops for sort of really being careful about who you are and playing with your instincts.
is there anything you'd want to change
in
Mass Effect 2?
in terms of the game or in terms of my character?
The game.
I mean, we can talk about the mining, but it's been kind of talked to death.
I had an idea on that though. I
What
was
was
thinking, like, I don't mind the mining.
Yeah.
Once I scanned my 100th planet, I was like,
We
okay,
have like
I'm
our
over
quick
this.
trick
You click
to
the
it
L,
where we
click
just,
the L trigger, you move much faster.
Sucks when you have a squeaky controller.
But here's the thing. I think what I want in Mass Effect 3, and this is going to kill people at BioWare if they try it, I'm sure, but I think you should use the mining scanning thing to interact with gas giants. And for terrestrial planets, if I can set my foot on it, there should be an anomaly mission.
I
side mission thing.
I think that's a really good idea because there was that point where it's like I bet there could be something interesting down there. And when you did find an anomaly mission, they tended to give you a lot of metals. I mean, it's a nice way to kind of balance the two things.
And
out.
I had way more metal resources than I needed.
God,
by
I
the
have
end
so
of the
much
game.
iridium.
I still have 400,000 iridium, and I'm running out of cash.
I have yes, the economy in Mass Effect 2 is much tighter than anything. Than
Yeah, I
what
kind of
was
wish I hadn't
expecting.
bought those fish.
But I
Seriously.
ran
But I'm not selling
out.
back my space hamster.
I could never have enough platinum. That was my problem. I thought it was going to be Element Zero. Turns out platinum was just.
I got about 300,000 platinum. That's what I did is because you were so complaining so much about how many resources you needed, I totally overmined the galaxy, spent all my money on mining probes and fuel, and now I don't.
Did
have
we
enough
learn nothing from
now I don't have
Avatar?
enough credits to basically. If anyone hasn't played this yet, you have more than enough resources if you just mine the rich planets you find.
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
scanner.
Absolutely.
Don't bother mining everything. Because the one finite resource in Mass Effect 2 is cash.
Yeah.
If you
Yes.
run out of cash, you can't buy the final upgrades, and that lessens your chances of your team surviving the final mission, and that's horrible.
Yes, which means you'll just have to play it again.
I want DLC
darn.
already so bad for this game, though.
Yes.
I know. It's
I'm sure you'll get it soon enough.
I have
know.
to say, and this really says something about the game. Us talking about it here right now, I want to go play it.
Yeah.
Like, it's.
I do, but I'm happy with where I am. I
Yeah.
got through the final mission. It took me 34 hours. Everyone survived, and so now I'm like, okay, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't screw it up.
I've spent like a week hearing people talk about how awesome the final mission is, and that's like all I have left to do.
sorry.
So I just want to go home.
Go home. All right, here's our question of the week. It's from our reader, High Definition. Bang for the buck is mentioned a lot when talking about games, but what about the cost of time spent? I like this kid. We all want more out of the games we play, but do you think length really creates this? Modern Warfare 2 was very short, but the campaign was great. I want the most for my money, but this has the potential to make developers fluff games than rather keep them at a shorter length. I don't know how many games I can look at that are being fluffed, but I do see this as... That was pretty awesome. Yeah. I just lost Abby on that.
Mining planets, fluff.
Oh, yeah, there is some fluff there. But, I mean, there is this sense that if it's a shooter, it must be 10 hours.
And using Modern Warfare isn't a great example because, again, it's multiplayer. Like, that's
But it's
there's
also,
your...
I didn't want any more of Modern Warfare 2. I mean, it's like,
Okay.
you gave me 3 plot twists. Anything more And my credibility,
Yeah.
which was right there, would have been like, okay, this is getting the crazy pants
Sure.
time.
Well, we see this in the comments from readers and our reviews all the time. Is always people try and break down, and I understand why they do it, given that we kind of have access to everything, and people are trying to pick which game they're going to play for maybe 2 or 3 months, but trying to break down what is the hour per
Dollar.
dollar on the game, and usually our like kickback to that is, well, you really can't think of it that way, and I think that's kind of. Yeah, I mean, he's alluding to that with Modern Warfare 2. That's a bad example because of the multiplayer.
I know Adam and I have talked about before, like, it's getting harder for shooters to not have fluff in them because it's a challenge to make a shooter that offers something new that we haven't just done before and run through a room and shoot things. And
Look at MAG 256.
yeah, because then you
hook.
start to get shooters where you're like, yeah, okay, this isn't that exciting. This feels like fluff. Like, if you could pare this down to the couple things that you're doing that are actually really interesting, I would be happy. But how do you make an entire 10-hour game that somebody expects out of that? I don't know. I'm enjoying seeing. That's why I'm enjoying seeing such a blend of like shooters and RPGs and shooters
I think
and other
that's how you
things
get
and
more
games
quality
expanding.
time
And-
with your product.
Yeah.
It is funny with regard to shooters. I'm not going to guess the age of high definition, but fluff in lots of games. Actually, if you go back to the 90s, I remember doing an interview with Cliffy B about the original Unreal, and he, by his own admission, thinks that like an entire third of that game should have been taken out because it just went on and on. Like old shooters, I never could figure out when the hell it was going to
Yeah.
end, and I don't think that my life was made any better by just having like that many more corridors to shoot things in the
And
head.
that's
No.
another testament to the Mass Effect 2 mixes in the RPG elements because I would not play a 60-hour shooter.
No, I would not play a 60-hour
And I
shooter.
don't- you don't
I don't know
see
if I
that
play a
as much
60-hour
anymore.
RPG. That was just a straight RPG. I think that would start to
Well,
test
I've
my
done
patience
that.
as well. Yeah. I think we all have done it, but I can't say I look back and say that's my favorite gaming memory.
No. Hitting 99, 99, 99 on Final Fantasy VII is not something that I think fondly about.
And you did.
No.
I did.
Wow.
Man. Wow, guys.
Yeah. I think
and
it's
you got
getting
everything
harder.
in Kingdom Hearts.
Yes, I have 100% on both Kingdom Hearts games.
That's amazing.
I think
girlfriend
it's
likes
getting
it, though, so it
harder and
doesn't
harder
count.
to put that kind
That's
of
true.
fluff
You
into
get
games without people putting it out
You
immediately.
get a pass on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, and Matt and I think have said this, that if a game's really good, the replay value comes from the desire to want to play it
Absolutely.
again.
There's
And that's, you can have a very short game. The original Sly Cooper comes to mind. It's like, I actually appreciated it was quite short because it was like, oh man, I'm going to go right back in there and play it one more time.
I'm more inclined to go through a game on a higher difficulty level if it's not ridiculously long. I'm more inclined. Yeah, I'm more inclined to play it again. If there's something different that I can do, like if there's a different class, if there's something else, I am more inclined to play that game again if it's shorter.
The experience is going to
Yeah.
change somehow,
But
meaningful.
I'll play it if I'll play a game just to experience it again if I really loved it.
Sure.
Like I played No More Heroes 3 times. I play Shadow of the Colossus about once a year.
Yeah.
And they're not long
But you might
games.
not do that if Shadow of the Colossus was 30 hours long.
Yeah, but if there was like
I
fluff,
still might.
yeah, I think Matt might
you
actually
probably
play Shadow of
would.
the Colossus was 30 hours long.
But if that 30 hours was filled with fluff stuff that was
Right.
kind of boring, I mean, the reason those games work
Some
is because
side
they're
quests,
pared down
maybe.
into this is what this game needs to be as good as it is.
No matter how many times I play that game, I spend an embarrassing amount of time shooting lizards.
Yeah.
Bad example.
Bad
man.
example.
I don't know. Can any
pull
amount
back.
of time shooting a
I
lizard
pull
be called
back.
embarrassing? Well, we're going to have to hold that for next week because we are done with feedback for this week. Matt, thank you so much for coming by. Abby Happy, Patrick Klepek. There's still many more exciting
Lot
games
of
coming out
games.
over the next
Yeah.
couple of months. So you guys should make sure to tune in every Wednesday. That's when it goes up. You can wait till Thursday, but it is available every Wednesday. Feedback. We'll see you next week.